The late afternoon sun stretched across the cracked pavement outside Morrison Auto Repairs. Jack Morrison stood under the hood of an old pickup truck, the smell of oil and metal clinging to the warm air. His hands were steady, his focus sharp, the way it always was when he worked. The steady rhythm of tightening bolts was the only sound in the garage until it wasn't. That's when he heard it, small, frantic footsteps pounding against the gravel. Then came the sound of crying, sharp and terrified. Jack froze, wrench still in hand, as two little girls burst into the garage, their faces streaked with tears, their tiny voices trembling. "Daddy! Daddy! Mommy's not waking up!" The wrench slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. For a second, Jack couldn't move. He stared at the girls, identical twins, no older than 6, wearing matching pink dresses smudged with dirt and fear. Their big blue eyes were wide with panic. He blinked. "Daddy? I think you've got the wrong person," he said gently, kneeling down. "Where's your house?" But the girls didn't stop crying. One of them clung to his arm, shaking. The other pointed toward the road. "Mama's on the floor. She won't move." Jack's heart slammed against his ribs. He didn't know who these girls were, but their fear was real. And something inside him, that old instinct from his firefighting days, kicked in. Without another word, he grabbed his phone, tossed his rag aside, and ran. The twins led the way through the quiet neighborhood, past the shuttered diner and the old laundromat, until they reached the tall iron gates of the Bennett estate, the kind of mansion that didn't belong in this part of town. Jack had seen it before, towering behind its walls like a ghost from another world. He never thought he'd step inside. The gate was ajar. The girls ran in first. Jack followed close behind, his boots crunching on the gravel driveway. The house was massive. White marble steps, tall glass windows, everything shining but lifeless. Inside, it was too quiet. The echo of their footsteps filled the grand hallway as they rushed toward the living room. That's when he saw her. A woman sprawled on the floor between a glass coffee table and a white couch. She was pale, her lips colorless, her breathing shallow. Jack dropped to his knees beside her, his firefighter training taking over like muscle memory. "Call 911, he barked at the older housekeeper frozen in the doorway. "Now!" He checked the woman's pulse, faint, irregular. He tilted, her head back, cleared her airway, and placed 2 fingers on her neck, counting beats under his breath. The girls were sobbing beside him, clinging to each other. "Stay with me," Jack said firmly, pressing 2 fingers to her wrist. "You're going to be okay. Just breathe for me." Her eyelids fluttered just once, and he caught the faintest sound, a whisper of air like her body fighting to stay alive. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in, lifting her gently onto a stretcher. The girls tried to follow, their cries echoing through the marble hall. Jack scooped them both up in his arms, one on each side. "You're coming with me," he said softly. They didn't argue. They just held on tight. He followed the ambulance in his truck, his son Noah sitting in the passenger seat, silent and wide-eyed. The ride to the hospital felt endless, the flashing lights painting the city in red and blue. In the waiting room, time slowed. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air. Jack sat on the hard bench with the twins huddled close to him, one of them tracing small circles on his palm to calm herself. Noah sat beside them, quietly holding the other girl's hand. Jack looked at them, their tiny faces, their trembling lips, and something in his chest shifted. He didn't know them, but something about their eyes. It pulled at a memory he couldn't place. An hour later, a doctor appeared, clipboard in hand. "She's stable," he said. "She suffered cardiac arrhythmia brought on by exhaustion and stress. She'll recover, but she needs rest." Jack exhaled in relief. "Can I see her?" The doctor hesitated, glancing at the twins. Then he nodded. "A few minutes." The room was quiet when Jack entered. The woman lay in the hospital bed, tubes running to her wrist, monitors beeping softly. Her hair was loose now, dark brown waves spilling over the pillow. Without the makeup and the corporate armor, she looked human, fragile. She opened her eyes slowly. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Jack spoke first. "Your daughters called me Daddy." Her lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. "I know," he frowned. "Why would they—" But before he could finish, tears filled her eyes. She turned her face away, her voice trembling. "Because—" They weren't wrong. Jack froze. His mind went blank, words caught somewhere between disbelief and confusion. He looked at her again, really looked at her, and suddenly something old stirred in his memory. A carnival, a Ferris wheel, a woman with laughing eyes. And just like that, the past he'd buried started clawing its way back. He stepped closer, voice low. "What did you say your name was?" She looked at him then, tears streaking her pale cheeks, and whispered, "Serafina Bennett." Jack felt the world tilt slightly. The Serafina Bennett, CEO of Astravita Biotech, the mysterious woman who'd moved into the estate a few months ago. But he wasn't thinking about her power or her fame. He was thinking about a night 6 years ago, a night that ended with a promise he never thought he'd break. The faintest smile tugged at her lips. Broken, sad. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." Jack's voice cracked. "You mean Ella and Emma?" Serafina's tears fell freely now. "They're yours, Jack." The monitor beeped steadily beside them. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside the room, the twins waited with Noah, their small faces pressed against the glass. And as Jack looked at them, at the reflection of 3 children who didn't yet understand how their world had changed, he knew one thing for certain. Nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The next morning, the world outside the hospital window was wrapped in quiet rain. Drops tapped gently against the glass, blurring the city lights into a soft haze. Jack stood beside the window, arms folded, eyes unfocused. He hadn't slept. His mind kept replaying Serafina's words from the night before. "They're yours, Jack." The sentence hung in his head like an echo that refused to fade. Every time he thought about it, his chest tightened. 6 years ago, he'd walked away from a part of his life he thought was gone forever. And now, it was sitting just down the hallway, in the form of 2 little girls who called him Daddy, without hesitation. He turned when he heard the door open. The twins entered quietly, holding Noah's hands. Their eyes still looked tired from crying, but when they saw him, they smiled weakly. "Daddy, can we see Mama?" one of them asked softly. Jack nodded. "She's still resting, sweetheart. But you can peek in. Just be quiet, okay?" The girls tiptoed to the bed, whispering her name. Serafina opened her eyes at the sound, a faint smile spreading across her face. She reached out, brushing their hair with shaky fingers. The sight made Jack's throat tighten. After a moment, Serafina looked at him. "Can we talk?" He nodded and led her out to the hospital garden. The morning air was cool, and the scent of wet earth lingered. They sat under a small shelter near a fountain, the rain drizzling softly around them. For a while, neither spoke. Then Serafina finally said, "I didn't plan to see you again like this." Jack's voice was rough. "You could have told me. I had a right to know." She sighed, her eyes heavy with regret. "I wanted to. But the company, my father, he made sure I couldn't. You remember how things were back then. I was the boss's daughter. You were the firefighter who saved me from that explosion. He said if I didn't walk away, he'd ruin your career." Jack's jaw tightened. "So, you walked away anyway." Serafina's hands trembled as she clasped them in her lap. "I thought I was protecting you. But then I found out I was pregnant. Twins. And by then, you were gone." He turned to face her fully, disbelief and anger mixing in his voice. You raised them alone all this time? She nodded. I tried to, but it hasn't been easy. I built the company, gave them everything money could buy, but not a father. Her voice cracked. When I saw you that day at the garage, I wanted to say something, but I froze. I didn't know how to explain everything. Something. But I froze. I didn't know how to explain everything. The rain picked up, tapping faster against the shelter roof. Jack leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You let me think you'd forgotten me. You let our kids grow up without even knowing who I was. I know, she whispered, and I hate myself for it. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then one of the nurses approached from the doorway. Mr. Morrison, the girls are asking for you. He stood, his heart still heavy. I'll go check on them. Before he walked away, Serafina said quietly, Jack, I never stopped caring about you. I just thought you deserved a life without my family's shadows over it. He didn't answer. He just nodded slightly and left. Back in the children's waiting area, the twins sat with Noah, coloring pictures on the hospital floor. One of them looked up as Jack entered. Daddy, is Mama going to be okay? Jack crouched down beside them, forcing a small smile. She's going to be fine. She just needs rest. Noah looked between them and then at his father. Are they really my sisters? He asked softly. The question hit Jack like a wave. He stared at his son, realizing that his life, their life, was now tangled in ways he hadn't imagined. He didn't want to lie. Yeah, he said finally. They are. Noah smiled faintly and handed each of the twins a crayon. Then I'll help take care of them too. Jack swallowed hard. Good boy. That night, when he finally got home, the rain had stopped. He sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, staring into the quiet darkness. His mind was a storm. Memories of Serafina, their laughter, their one night by the lake when she told him she wanted a life away from wealth and rules. Now, it all made sense. The girls, the fear, the secret. He glanced down at his phone. A message blinked from an unknown number. Jack, it's Serafina. There's something else I need to tell you. It's not just about the twins. Please come tomorrow morning. It's important. He read the message twice, his pulse quickening. Something in her tone, that hint of fear, told him the truth she hadn't spoken yet might change everything again. He closed his eyes, exhaling into the cold air. Some secrets stayed buried for years, but when they surfaced, they had the power to rewrite entire lives. And Jack Morrison was about to learn that the woman he once loved wasn't just hiding his children. She was hiding something far darker. The morning sun slipped through thin clouds, spilling pale light across the quiet hospital. Jack walked down the long corridor, the smell of coffee and disinfectant filling the air. His boots echoed softly against the polished floor. He hadn't slept much. Serafina's late-night message still played in his mind, heavy and strange. It's not just about the twins. He stopped outside her room, hand on the doorknob. Through the glass, he saw her sitting upright in bed, staring out the window. Her face was calm but pale, like someone who had spent the night wrestling with ghosts. When she turned and saw him, a faint smile touched her lips. You came? I said I would, Jack replied quietly, stepping inside. What did you want to tell me? Serafina took a deep breath. Jack, what I'm about to say might sound unbelievable, but you deserve the truth. He pulled up a chair and sat beside her, waiting. She reached into the bedside drawer and took out a small, crumpled envelope. Its edges were worn, its paper yellowed by time. I found this 2 weeks ago, she said softly. It's from my father. He wrote it before he passed, Jack frowned. Your father, the one who kept us apart. She nodded. Yes, but this letter, it changes everything. She handed it to him with trembling fingers. Jack opened it slowly, scanning the faded handwriting. Serafina, if you're reading this, I'm gone. There are things I've kept from you. Things about the man you loved and the reason I tried to separate you. Jack Morrison wasn't just any man. He was part of a project your mother and I created years ago. A project meant to protect you. He was chosen not by chance but by design. You'll understand one day. But remember this. The truth about the twins lies in their blood. Forgive me. Richard Bennett Jack's eyes narrowed. What the hell does this mean? Serafina looked down, her voice trembling. My father was working on genetic research long before I took over the company. He believed he could cure inherited diseases through something called cell resonance mapping. But the government shut him down. Said it was too dangerous. Jack leaned forward, confused. What does that have to do with me? She met his gaze. You were one of his early volunteers, Jack. You just didn't know it. Remember when you got that experimental treatment after the factory explosion? The one that saved your lungs? He froze. That was a trial run. Serafina nodded. My father injected you with a modified serum, something he thought could enhance cell recovery. He never told you, and I didn't find out until years later. That's why he didn't want us together. He was afraid if you had children it might affect them. Jack stared at her, shock draining the color from his face. And the twins. She nodded again. He was right. They're special, Jack. Not sick, but different. The doctors told me their immune systems react unlike anything they've seen. They heal faster. They almost never get sick. Jack rubbed his forehead, his heart pounding. You're saying our daughters aren't normal? They're human, she said firmly, reaching for his hand. But their genes carry something that could change medicine forever. That's why I built Astravita. To understand it. To protect them. Jack pulled his hand back slowly, trying to steady his thoughts. You built an empire. Just to hide the truth about our kids? Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't want them to be used, Jack. My father's old partners. They've been searching for his research. If they ever find out what the twins are capable of, she swallowed hard. They'll take them. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor was the only sound. Jack finally spoke. So that's why you sent me that message. You think they're in danger? Serafina nodded. I don't think it, Jack. I know it. Yesterday, I saw someone outside the estate gate. A man from my father's old team, Dr. Haynes. He's been calling the company for weeks. He said he wants to complete Richard's work, but that's just his excuse. He's after them. Jack's expression hardened. If what you're saying is true, we need to get the girls somewhere safe. Tonight. Serafina exhaled shakily. I already made arrangements. There's a safe house outside the city, but I can't go yet. I still have something locked in my office. My father's hard drive. It's the only proof of what he did. Jack stood up. Then I'll get it. She reached for his hand again, her grip weak but desperate. Jack, be careful. If Haynes is watching us, he'll know where you're going. He gave a small nod, his voice low and steady. I faced worse. As he turned to leave, Serafina whispered, Jack, I'm sorry I hid the truth. I thought I could handle it alone. He paused at the door and looked back. You don't have to anymore. When he stepped outside, the air felt heavier. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Jack pulled his jacket tighter around him and headed toward the parking lot. He had one goal: reach her office, find the hard drive, and protect his daughters. But as he started the truck, he didn't notice the black SUV parked across the street. Inside, a man in a gray suit lifted his phone and spoke into the receiver. He's on the move, the man said coldly. Follow him. Make sure he doesn't leave the city. The call ended. The SUV's engine roared to life, and as Jack drove away, unaware he was being watched, the game of truth and betrayal began to unfold. One secret at a time. The city was draped in gray as Jack's truck rumbled through the narrow streets. The sky threatened rain, the kind that came down heavy and fast, the kind that washed away more than dust. His mind raced faster than the wheels beneath him. Every word Serafina said echoed in his head. Genetic project, hidden past. The twins' blood. It was madness. But deep down, something told him it was all true. He reached Astravita's headquarters just before sunset. The glass tower loomed over him like a monument to power and secrets. Security guards patrolled the entrance, their radios crackling softly. Jack parked across the street, pulled his cap low, and watched. He knew this wasn't a simple errand. It was a rescue mission cloaked in silence. After 15 minutes, he crossed the street and slipped into the building. The receptionist greeted him with a polite smile, not recognizing him in his worn jacket and grease-stained jeans. "Can I help you, sir?" "Maintenance," Jack said smoothly, holding up a fake badge Serafina had sent him through a private courier months ago, something she must have kept prepared for emergencies like this. "Got a report about a faulty vent in the CEO's office." The receptionist frowned but nodded, pressing a button to unlock the elevator. "Last floor. Be quick. The board's having a meeting soon." Jack stepped into the elevator, his pulse steady but alert. As the doors closed, he glanced at his reflection in the mirrored wall. For a moment, he didn't see a mechanic or a firefighter. He saw a man standing at the edge of two worlds, the ordinary and the unthinkable. When the elevator chimed open on the top floor, the air changed. It was colder, quieter. The hallway stretched before him, lined with sleek doors and soft light. Serafina's office sat at the far end, marked by her name etched in silver. He entered quickly, closing the door behind him. The office was minimalist. Dark wood, steel accents, and a view of the entire city. On her desk sat a single photo. The twins, laughing on a carousel. His chest tightened. He moved to her desk drawer, the one she mentioned. Locked. He tried a few keys she'd given him. None fit. Then he noticed something. A small biometric scanner under the handle. He hesitated. "Come on, Serafina. You said I'd find it." He looked around and spotted a framed picture on the shelf. A photo of Serafina holding the twins at the beach. The frame was thick, metallic. When he lifted it, the scanner under the desk flickered. Hidden sensors. He pressed the frame against the lock, and with a soft click the drawer opened. Inside lay a small silver hard drive, no bigger than his hand. A label was etched into the side. Project Helix, Final Archive. Jack slipped it into his jacket pocket just as he heard footsteps in the hall. He froze. The sound grew louder, deliberate, measured. Someone was coming. Jack turned off the lights and crouched behind the desk. The door handle twisted slowly. Then a man's voice drifted through the darkness. Calm, but dangerous. "I know you're here, Mr. Morrison." Jack's blood ran cold. The door creaked open, and a tall man stepped inside. Gray suit, clean shoes, eyes like polished steel. He carried himself with the precision of someone who had never once been uncertain. Dr. Haynes. He flicked on the desk lamp, the dim glow outlining his sharp features. "I thought you'd be smarter," he said quietly. "Coming here without backup." Jack stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "You've got me mistaken for someone else." Haynes smiled thinly. "No mistake. You're exactly who I was hoping to find." "The father," Jack's jaw clenched. "Stay away from my kids." "Relax," Haynes said, stepping closer. "I'm not your enemy, Jack. I'm a scientist. A man trying to finish what Richard Bennett started. You should be proud. Your daughters are living proof of his success." "They're not experiments," Jack growled. "Of course not," Haynes replied, his tone smooth as silk. "They're miracles. Do you have any idea what they could do for humanity? Immunity to disease, rapid cellular recovery, extended lifespan. All thanks to you and Serafina. You created something the world's been chasing for centuries." Jack shook his head. "You mean something you can sell?" Haynes sighed, disappointed. "You sound just like her. So emotional. So naive." He reached into his coat pocket. Not for a weapon, but a folder. He placed it on the desk, pushing it toward Jack. Inside were photographs, surveillance shots. Serafina at the hospital, the twins playing in the garden, even Noah walking to school. Jack's stomach twisted. "You've been following them?" "Protecting them," Haynes corrected. "Because soon someone else will come. People far less civilized than me. They want what's in their veins. If you don't cooperate, I can't keep them safe." Jack's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "You stay away from my family, or I swear—" Before he could finish, Haynes raised a hand. "Careful. Anger clouds judgment. You need me more than you think." Jack took a step closer, eyes locked on him. "The only thing I need is to make sure my kids grow up free." Haynes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then you'll fail. Because freedom is a luxury for people without secrets. The words hung heavy between them. Without another word, Jack turned, shoved the door open, and walked out. Haynes didn't stop him. He just called after him softly. "We'll talk again soon, Mr. Morrison, whether you want to or not." The elevator ride down felt endless. Jack's mind raced. Every second felt like a countdown. He had the hard drive. But now he knew the danger was real and closing in fast. Outside, the rain had begun to fall, drumming against the windshield as he climbed into his truck. He glanced in the mirror. Headlights appeared behind him. One car, then another. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. So that's how it's going to be. He hit the gas. The tires screeched on wet asphalt as he sped into the night. Behind him, the black SUVs followed, silent and relentless. The chase had begun. And somewhere in a hospital bed miles away, Serafina woke up with a start, her heart pounding. Something inside her whispered, "He's in danger." She pressed the call button, her voice shaky. "Nurse, I need a phone, now." Because Serafina, Bennett, wasn't just a mother or a CEO anymore. She was a woman who had run out of fear. She was ready to fight for her family. Rain lashed against the windshield like 1,000 frantic fingers. The night had turned violent, thunder cracking through the clouds as Jack's truck tore down the slick highway. The wipers struggled to keep up, but he didn't slow down. Every glance at the mirror showed the same thing. 2 black SUVs keeping steady distance behind him. He'd dealt with danger before as a firefighter, running into burning buildings while others fled. But this was different. This time, the fire had a face. And that face was Dr. Haynes. Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His mind raced with only one thought: get to the girls. The rain grew heavier, turning the road into a river of glistening darkness. He swerved off the main route and took a detour toward the outskirts of the city. He knew every back road, every shortcut. If he could just make it past the ridge and down toward the old bridge, he might lose them in the storm. The hard drive in his jacket pocket felt heavier with every mile. It wasn't just data. It was the truth. The proof that his daughters weren't ordinary. That truth had power. But power like that always came with a price. He pressed harder on the accelerator. The truck roared. The headlights behind him grew smaller, then vanished behind a curtain of rain. For a moment, he thought he'd lost them. Then, headlights flared to his left. Another SUV shot out of a side road, cutting across his path. Damn it! Jack slammed the brakes and jerked the wheel, barely missing the vehicle as the truck skidded sideways. The tires screamed against the wet pavement before the truck straightened out. He floored it again. Through the thunder, his phone buzzed. He grabbed it, still steering with one hand. It was Serafina. "Jack, where are you?" Her voice was shaky, filled with panic. "I've got the drive," he said between breaths. "But I'm not alone. They found me. Oh, God," she whispered. "Jack, listen to me. You need to get to the safe house. Take the road through Pine Hollow. I sent you the coordinates." "Already heading that way," he said. "How are the girls?" "They're with Dolores. But they're scared. Emma keeps asking if you're coming back." He swallowed hard. "Tell her I'll be home soon." There was silence for a moment. Then Serafina's voice softened. "Be careful. If something happens to you—" "Nothing's going to happen," Jack interrupted. "I'm not leaving them again." A crash of thunder cut through the line. Then a new sound, tires screeching. In the rearview mirror, the SUVs were back, closer now. He shoved the phone in his pocket and took a sharp turn down an old service road that ran along the cliffs. The narrow path curved dangerously close to the edge, but Jack knew it well. It was where he used to take Noah fishing years ago. The rain blurred everything into streaks of silver and black. He could barely see 10 feet ahead, but instinct guided him. Then came the flash. One of the SUV's headlights burst through the fog behind him. They were closing in fast. Jack's jaw tightened. "You picked the wrong man to chase." He hit the brakes suddenly, spinning the wheel. The truck fishtailed, slamming sideways across the road just as the first SUV came too close to stop. It clipped his bumper, spun out, and crashed into the guardrail with a roar of twisting metal. Jack didn't wait. He shifted gears and gunned it again, water spraying behind him. The second SUV kept coming. Its lights stayed locked on his tail. Jack spotted the old bridge ahead, wooden, half-rotted, barely holding together after years of neglect. But it was his only way across the river. He pressed down harder. As he hit the bridge, the wood groaned under the weight of the truck. Every plank trembled. Rain poured harder, thunder exploding like artillery fire. Halfway across, the SUV followed, and that's when Jack saw it. The bridge's support beams were cracking under the strain. He floored it one last time. The truck leapt off the final section just as the bridge behind him collapsed. The SUV plunged into the churning water below with a violent splash, its lights disappearing into darkness. Jack's heart hammered. He slowed the truck, chest heaving. He'd made it, but barely. For a few moments, all he could hear was the sound of rain and his own breathing. Then, as if on cue, lightning split the sky, illuminating the road ahead. A small wooden cabin tucked behind a cluster of pine trees. The safe house. He pulled up and jumped out of the truck, rain soaking him instantly. He ran to the door, punched in the code Serafina had sent him, and stepped inside. The place was small but sturdy. Old furniture, thick curtains, and a faint smell of cedar. On the table sat a small burner phone and a folded note. He opened it. If you're reading this, you made it. Keep the drive hidden. Trust no one, not even those who claim to help. I'll come to you when it's safe. Jack set the note down and ran a hand through his wet hair. You better hurry, Serafina, he muttered, because this isn't over. He placed the hard drive in a metal box beneath the floorboards just in case. Then he sank onto the couch, exhausted but alert. Outside, the rain kept falling. But the storm wasn't done. Not the one in the sky, and not the one building inside him, because deep down, Jack knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere miles away, Dr. Haynes sat in a black sedan, staring at a screen showing Jack's location pulsing on a map. A small smile crept across his face. Let him rest, Haynes said quietly to the driver. Tomorrow we move in. The father won't fight alone forever. He leaned back in his seat, eyes gleaming in the dim light. And when he breaks, we'll have everything we need. The rain outside intensified, masking the danger crawling closer. Inside the safe house, Jack finally closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't know that in the woods beyond the cabin, 2 red dots from a drone camera blinked quietly, recording everything. The storm had ended, but the war for his family had just begun. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than thunder. The forest around the cabin dripped with the aftermath of rain, every branch glistening under a pale morning light. Inside, Jack sat by the window, a mug of coffee untouched in his hand. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. The hard drive lay hidden beneath the floorboards, sealed in the metal box. Every sound outside, a bird's call, a crack of a branch, made him tense. The peace was too quiet, too still. Then the crunch of gravel. He reached for the pistol under the table. The sound grew louder. Footsteps. Steady. Careful. A faint knock followed. Jack, a familiar voice called softly. It's me. He froze. It was Serafina. He pulled back the curtain. There she was, drenched, shivering, hair matted from rain. Relief flooded through him, but something in his gut told him not to relax just yet. He opened the door. You made it, he said, stepping aside. She nodded weakly, stepping in. They're everywhere, Jack. Haynes won't stop until he has what's on that drive. He closed the door behind her and locked it. I know. I saw what he did to those men back at the lab. He's not after the data. He's after them. Her eyes flickered. The girls? Jack nodded. Emma and Lily. Whatever's in their DNA, it's what Haynes built his program around. Serafina turned away, her voice low. I never wanted this. It was supposed to be a cure, something that could heal, not destroy. Jack studied her carefully. The way she said it, not with shock or confusion, but guilt. You knew? He asked slowly. She hesitated. I didn't know it would come to this. The experiments, they were meant to save lives. But Haynes changed everything. Jack slammed his hand on the table. Don't lie to me, Serafina. You worked with him. Tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, I did. But not like that. She took a step closer. Jack, listen to me. When you disappeared years ago, I was pregnant. Haynes found out. He said he could help. He said your girls were special, that their genes carried something pure, something untouched. He used me to get to them. Jack's jaw tightened. You let him experiment on our daughters. I didn't let him. She cried. He took everything from me, from us. I thought they were gone forever. When I found you again, I wanted to tell you the truth. But he turned away, gripping the edge of the sink, staring out the fogged window. The truth. You brought him right to us. Silence. Then the faint hum of engines in the distance. Jack's eyes narrowed. You didn't come alone, did you? Serafina's breath caught. No. Jack, listen. He followed me, but I can fix this. He backed away, shaking his head. You led him here. She took a step toward him, voice trembling. I didn't mean to. He planted a tracker on me. But if we run now, we can still... The cabin lights flickered. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. Jack rushed to the window. Black vans were rolling through the trees, headlights off. Shadows moved between them. Soldiers in tactical gear. Serafina's voice broke. Jack, please. He spun around, eyes burning. You betrayed us. Before she could answer, a thunderous bang shook the door. The first van had rammed into the porch. Armed men poured out, shouting orders. Jack grabbed Serafina's arm. Downstairs, now. They ran to the cellar door beneath the rug. He yanked it open, ushered her down, then pulled the metal box from the floor. The hard drive. Gunfire cracked through the cabin walls. Splinters rained down. Jack! Serafina screamed. He shoved the box into her hands. Take it. There's a tunnel behind the wine rack. It leads to the river. Follow it and don't look back. What about you? I'll hold them off. Tears streamed down her face. No, you can't. He kissed her forehead. I already lost you once. I'm not losing the girls, too. Before she could speak, he pushed her toward the tunnel and slammed the cellar door shut. The next second, the front door burst open. Flashlights, boots, and shouting filled the cabin. Jack ducked behind the table, returning fire. The sound of bullets echoed like thunder. One man fell, another shouted orders. He moved with purpose, precise, controlled. Years of training kicked in, but there were too many. They surrounded the cabin, firing through the walls. Jack was forced to retreat toward the kitchen. He spotted a flash grenade rolling across the floor. He dove behind the counter just before it went off. The explosion tore through the room. His ears rang. Smoke filled the air. When he looked up, he saw them. Black suits, helmets, and in the middle of it all, Dr. Haynes. The man stepped inside calmly, brushing off the rain from his coat. You've been busy, Mr. Ward, he said, voice dripping with satisfaction. Jack raised his gun, but Haynes didn't flinch. You think you can stop what's already begun? Those girls are miracles, Jack. And miracles belong to science. Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. They belong to me. But before he could fire, something hit him from behind. The butt of a rifle. His world spun into black. When he came to, the cabin was in ruins. His wrists were tied, blood on his temple. The room was silent except for the crackle of fire. Serafina was gone. So was the hard drive. He looked up at the broken window where dawn was beginning to creep through the trees. She had escaped, but not alone. And somewhere out there, Dr. Haynes was one step ahead. Jack's voice was hoarse as he whispered into the emptiness. You can take everything from me, but I'm coming for my family. He leaned his head back against the wall, eyes burning with fury. Outside, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. And on the road beyond the trees, a black van sped away, Serafina inside, clutching the metal box and crying silently as Haynes sat beside her, smiling. The betrayal was complete. But the fight had only just begun.